$100 billion. Not government money, private money. Trump looked at America's most powerful oil executives and said this: come back to Venezuela, a country where they already lost billions, a country they walked away from, a country one CEO called uninvestible. Trump offered something no market can price: total security, total protection, power instead of paperwork. Drill again, he said. Rebuild again. Flood the market with oil. Push prices down to $50 a barrel. Make life cheaper for American families. It sounds bold, simple, almost elegant. But here's the problem. Markets have memory. Corporations remember pain. And Venezuela is not just a broken oil state. It is a warning label. If you want to understand how political power tries to override economic reality and why it so often fails, stay with me. Because this story is not about oil. It's about control. To understand this gamble, we need to look at the real problem Trump is trying to fix and why Venezuela became his answer. At first glance, this looks like an oil deal, but it isn't. Trump is not really talking about Venezuela. He is talking about prices, gas prices, energy costs, political pressure at home. Oil sits at the center of everything. Inflation, consumer confidence, elections. When oil is expensive, everything feels broken. When oil is cheap, leaders look competent. Trump's logic is direct. Increase supply, flood the market, force prices down. Venezuela matters because it still has oil. A lot of it untapped, underused, locked behind collapse and chaos. If American companies can unlock that supply, prices fall everywhere. Not just in the US, globally. But this strategy carries a hidden assumption. That political power can replace trust, that security promises can override risk models, that corporations will follow flags instead of balance sheets. That assumption is the fault line. To see why this fault line exists, we have to go back to how Venezuela reached this point in the first place. Venezuela did not collapse overnight. It eroded slowly, predictably. For decades, oil was not just an industry. It was the state. Revenue paid for everything: food, subsidies, power. When prices were high, the system looked stable. When prices fell, cracks appeared. Then came control. Tighter laws, heavier state hands, rules that changed after the money arrived. Foreign companies learned the lesson the hard way. Contracts could be rewritten. Assets could be seized. Losses could not be recovered. Investments stopped. Maintenance stopped. Infrastructure decayed. Oil fields don't forgive neglect. Pipelines corrode. Refineries fail. Production collapses. By the time global prices recovered, Venezuela couldn't respond. The machine was broken. This is the cycle Trump is trying to reverse. But cycles have memory. And that memory exploded into real losses, moments the oil industry still hasn't forgotten. For the oil industry, Venezuela is not theory. It is trauma. Billions went in. Billions never came back. Projects were halted midstream. Facilities taken over. Agreements dissolved without warning. Executives learned a brutal lesson. Political risk is not abstract. It shows up on balance sheets. That is why one voice in the room mattered more than Trump's promise. Exxon CEO said it plainly. A third return would require significant changes, not optimism, not speeches, systems, legal frameworks, commercial protections, rules that survive elections. Trump's response was blunt. They know the risks. That sentence explains everything. This is not reassurance. It is a wager. If you care about how power treats capital, remember this moment. Because beneath these losses sits a deeper structure, one that security promises alone cannot fix. On the surface, Trump is offering protection, but protection is not a system. It is a substitute. Markets don't run on promises. They run on rules, on courts, on enforcement that outlives leaders. Trump's plan skips that layer. Instead of rebuilding Venezuela's institutions, it centralizes control. Revenue routed through US, controlled accounts. Security guaranteed by power, not law. This is the hidden mechanism. Risk is not removed, it is relocated. From corporations to politics, from balance sheets to geopolitics. That works only if power never weakens, only if administrations never change, only if allies never object. The oil executives see this clearly. They are not rejecting Venezuela's oil. They are rejecting uncertainty dressed as confidence. And that uncertainty does not stay contained. It spreads fast into a second crisis. The second crisis isn't in Venezuela. It's global. Trump didn't just talk about oil. He talked about control. Control over revenue, control over governments, control for much longer than a year. That language travels. Allies hear it. Markets hear it. Rivals definitely hear it. The United Nations called it interference. Others heard something stronger. Precedent. If one country's resources can be managed externally, others become negotiable. Lines blur, norms erode. Then came the warning. Greenland, taken the easy way or the hard way. This is how economic plans become geopolitical shocks. Fast, unintended, unstoppable. And when power games escalate, the cost is never abstract. It lands on ordinary people. Now let's talk about you. Because none of this stays in boardrooms. When oil prices swing, you feel it first. At the pump, at the grocery store, in rent, in electricity bills. Cheap oil sounds like relief, but unstable systems create fragile relief. When deals are built on power instead of trust, they break suddenly. And when they break, prices spike faster than they fall. You don't see the contracts. You don't hear the negotiations, you only feel the shock. That's the hidden cost of political shortcuts. Short-term wins, long-term volatility. If you want cheaper energy that actually lasts, this distinction matters. If this analysis helps you see the system more clearly, stay with me, share it. Because understanding is the only protection most people get. And when these pressures move beyond borders, they reshape the global order itself. What happens in Venezuela does not stay in Venezuela. Oil is a global language. Prices move across borders instantly. If US companies flood the market, rivals respond. OPEC adjusts. Russia recalculates. China watches closely. Energy becomes leverage. Not just a commodity. Control over supply turns into influence over allies and pressure on competitors. But this strategy carries risk. When power replaces norms, trust erodes. When trust erodes, blocks harden. The world fragments not by ideology, by energy security. This is how economic tools become geopolitical weapons. Quietly, systematically. And once the system shifts, the future stops being singular. It splits into paths. From here, three futures emerge. The first is the optimistic one. Security holds, oil flows, prices fall and stay low. Markets accept the risk, companies adapt, consumers get relief, but this future depends on perfect continuity. No political shocks, no legal reversals, no backlash from allies. The second future is messier. Oil production rise, prices dip, then uncertainty returns. Investments slow, disputes appear, volatility becomes normal. This is the most likely path. Temporary wins, permanent instability. The third future is darker. Security guarantees fail, power shifts, rules collapse. Companies retreat again, prices surge, trust disappears. History favors this outcome when systems rely on force instead of institutions. This moment reveals a deeper truth. Markets can be pressured, they cannot be commanded. Trump's Venezuela pitch is bold. But boldness is not structure, and power is not trust. Oil can lower prices, but only institutions lower risk. When leaders try to shortcut systems, they create volatility, not stability, not prosperity. Venezuela is not just a test of energy policy. It is a test of how much control the modern world will tolerate before it resists. The future will not be decided by promises. It will be decided by rules that survive power. If you want to understand how today's economic gambles shape tomorrow's world, stay here. Subscribe. Follow, because the next story will start where this one ends. And it won't be smaller. And that brings us to the real lesson behind Trump's gamble, one that goes far beyond oil